Well, I am thrilled. And Ms. Shafer, can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Oh, great. That is wonderful. I hear you loud and clear. Good. I'm going to get you introduced in a second, and I am thrilled to introduce her because my guest is a friend as well as she has been my boss, my supervisor, my leader. And so we've had, I've known her now. I've been in the district 25 years. This is my 25th year. I've known her all 25 of them and probably might even be a little bit longer. But my guest this morning is Eileen Shafer. For 42 years, Eileen Shafer passionately served the public education sector in New Jersey. Over her long tenure, Shafer served as supervisor, director of human resources, assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent, and ultimately superintendent of Paterson Public Schools, the first female. She acquired her M.A. from Slippery Rock University and a B.A. from Montclair State College, now University. During her lengthy tenure in Paterson, Shafer was awarded numerous commendations and citations, plus the highest honor one could receive, the key to the city. She retired in 2023 and continues to give back as an educational advisor for a nonprofit. Rebuilding her beloved shore house after the Sandy Superstorm washed it away, Eileen Shafer resides in Ocean County, New Jersey. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphones. Superintendent Eileen Shafer. Eileen, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
I am thrilled to have you because, as I said a couple minutes ago when we were talking, sometimes, most of the time, I guess I've just met or I really don't know them. But in your particular case, we have known each other for a long time. And Eileen has written a book because she retired and then she didn't stay in retirement. She actually went on to write a book, and we're going to work our way up to that. The book is titled Rising Through the Ranks, a memoir of perseverance and grit. So before we even get to the book, Ms. Shafer, let's talk a little bit about, where did this all begin in terms of, did you always want to become an educator? Like for me, I switched from corporate to education, even though I always wanted to be an educator. Did you always want to be an educator, or how did this come about? How did it come to be?
Yes, I always wanted to become an educator. I think I was influenced by my third grade teacher because I really enjoyed her class. And at that point, I said, you know what, I want to be a teacher. And then I didn't know what kind of teacher I wanted to be or what subject I wanted to teach, but I just knew I wanted to be a teacher. As I moved up through my elementary and high school years, I became an athlete, and I said, I want to become a physical education and health teacher. And so that's what I did. I went to Montclair State, which is now Montclair University, from 1976 to 1980. I had a great experience there. Did my student teaching and really loved it. And met a gentleman at Montclair State University, Tim Sullivan, and he was teacher of the handicap, physical education teacher of the handicap. He ran a whole department in Montclair State at the time, all kinds of activities, Special Olympics that you could get involved in. And so I took a lot of his classes, and we developed a relationship. And he said to me, if you want to go on and get your master's degree, I can help you get a graduate assistantship out at Slippery Rock University in Pennsylvania. And it's a one-year program, but you do 2 summers and a full school year, and you'll have your master's degree. So I said, well, I want to get my master's degree, and this is a great way to do it, in a year. And it would be free education, and then they give you a little stipend to live on. So I was going to make that work because I wasn't going to have time to have a job. So I needed to make that work financially. And so that's what I did. And I received that graduate assistantship, went out to Slippery Rock University and completed my master's degree, and then came back to New Jersey. At the time, though, I had secured a position at Vermont College as the basketball coach and as a physical education and health teacher at the college level. And so I pretty much thought I was all set. And I got that in the spring of 1981. Fast forward, it's July, and I get a call from the university that they have to trim their budget, and they could still offer me the coaching position, but not the teaching position. And at that time, I was not able to afford just to coach and not have a teaching position. And so I had to renege on that. And now it's into August, and now I'm trying to find a job. And at the time, there was not a teacher shortage like there is now, but there was an abundance of teachers. And so in that short period of time, I sent out about 100 resumes. And on Labor Day weekend, I get a call from the city of Orange, New Jersey, that the principal is actually looking for someone who has experience in adaptive physical education, which is physical education for the handicapped. And so I had gone out, Slippery Rock, was in that specialized program, and most of my credits were in educational leadership, but also in adaptive physical education. So he said, well, if you're still looking for a job, you can have this job. And that was my interview. He said, report day after Labor Day to my office, and we'll take it from there. And that started my career. And the city of Orange was a wonderful experience. In fact, that's where I met my editor and ghostwriter for my book. And she was my first boss. And I taught at Orange High School for 8 years. And after my 8 years, they asked me to go to central office and to run a grant for them. And so when I went to central office, I didn't know anything about central office. I was a new teacher. And I really enjoyed the central office experience. And after the second year with the grant, they said to me, well, now the grant is over. You have to go back to the high school. And I said to myself, I just like central office too much. I've got to find a job. This is my passion. This is what I'm kind of cut out to do. And at the time, it was 1992, Paterson Public Schools was just taken over by the state. Right. And so as I'm looking through the newspaper of all the jobs available, there were a lot of administrative jobs in Paterson available. And so I started to apply. And I was fortunate enough, they had the Supervisor of Substance Awareness. I had just gotten that certificate. And then they also had Supervisor of Physical Education and Health. So I interviewed for both. They offered me either one. And at the time I took the Supervisor of Substance Awareness, I said, I've done phys ed for a while. Let me try this. And that was my foot in the door for Paterson Public Schools. And at the time, the state had just put out a new requirement, and that was if students came to school under the influence of a substance, they would need to go out for testing. And so that was my charge. We were just state controlled at the time, and there were certain things that in Paterson had to be done as you started to try to get out of state control. And then, 30 plus years Paterson was in state control, as well as Jersey City and Newark, until we just recently got out. And so that's really how my career started. And in Paterson, I was very fortunate. I always loved what I did. But when I went to Paterson, there were certain people in the community that really planted seeds for me, helped me develop relationships, introduced me to all the right people. If you know Dr. Jessie Dixon, God bless her.
Yes.
May she rest in peace. She came to me because an 8th grader had thrown a newborn in the Passaic River. And she said to me, you have to help me. We got to do something about this. I want to have some kind of teen summit. We've got to get the safe havens together so kids don't do this. And that's what I did. I worked closely with her. We had teen summits. And she took me all around Paterson and introduced me to committees and advisory boards, and really got my foot in the door that I could start to develop relationships with people throughout the community. And, fast forward to my time as deputy and superintendent, those relationships really helped me navigate throughout the city and really set me up for a great situation in becoming a high-level leader as the deputy and then as the superintendent, because I had all those relationships. And that's really what education is about. It's about building relationships with people, whether it's the principals, the vice principals, the city council, the board of ed, the mayor, the assembly people, the senators, because all those people can help you. And so it was important to build those relationships, with the police department, the sheriff's department. And I was fortunate because as she brought me around, it was work. I was out at night. I was at meetings. I was sitting on boards. I was participating in committee work. But as she did that, those relationships lasted throughout my 32 years in Paterson, and really made my job so much more richer and fulfilling because I already had those relationships. And as you can see, I kept moving up in Paterson from supervisor to director of human resources to assistant superintendent of human resources, and then assistant superintendent over a cluster of schools, and then deputy, and then superintendent. And I have to tell you, after each position, I kept saying to myself, boy, I really love this position. And I did. And I would work hard at it, but I really enjoyed every position I had. I didn't think it could get any better, and then I would get the next position, and it was even better. Director of Human Resources was really a tough one. When you have a large district, lots and lots of papers, and we needed to put processes in place and have job descriptions for every position and interview processes that were fair. And so we put a lot of that stuff together, and I really loved that position. It was such a challenge. But then as I moved on, I thought the deputy position was the best position anybody could have. But the superintendent position is the best. And the reason it is because you can have so much of an impact on children's lives and families that you serve. And that's exactly what happened. And that's why, if you read my book, you'll see some examples of working with families, working with individual students, working with principals. When I was superintendent, we had that horrific incident of George Floyd, and working through that with the community was just so important. And what's really important is that as you become an administrator, whether it's a vice principal, a principal, an assistant superintendent, or the superintendent, you need to be involved in the community. If your community is your school community, you need to be involved. You need to be, servicing your clients, and your clients are your parents and families and your kids and your staff. So no matter what leadership position you're in, you really need to be invested in that group, whatever your group is. And I found that to be the most rewarding experience. There were so many people along my journey that were so influential on my life and who I am today. It started with my parents and my own family. My parents were servant leaders. My father was a fireman. My mother was very active in organizations, the Catholic Daughters, the Girl Scouts, And so they taught me how to give back. They taught me how to service your community and your neighbors and how to be kind to people. And that's really what educational leadership is all about. It's being a servant leader, but it's also being kind to people and helping people. And many of our parents came to me for help. And the help that they wanted was, what can you do to help my child? And those are the kind of parents you want. You want parents that are on the same page that you're on. And as educators, we all want the best for our students. Again, whether you're a principal or the superintendent, you want what's best for your students. And so we had that common thread throughout my administration, and that was, help me what's best for my child. And that was just a really significant part of my journey. And then, of course, working with students. As students get older and become middle and high schoolers, they have a responsibility in this as well, and teaching them that they have that responsibility, and not always giving them what they want, but working with them. You do your part, and we'll do our part. And so that those are stories that are in my book that really had a impact on me, on how I led by my heart. Not all leaders do, but I led by my heart. Not everyone is perfect. Everybody deserves second and third chances. And if we're here to educate kids and make the world a better place, and give kids opportunities to be successful, then that means second and third chances. Because, we were all kids. We all made mistakes. None of us were perfect. And that hasn't changed. But if you want the world to be a better place, we have to learn through our mistakes. And that's basically, how I operated. I was very responsive, whether you were a parent, a student, a teacher, a principal, or a community member. I was extremely responsive, and I found that to be very important to the community and to the folks that were looking for my responses. I know everybody gets tied up in being busy. We all have our personal life, we have our work life, and you can get really busy and bogged down. But it is important to respond to people, and that was one of my key attributes, was to be responsive. And when you're in a large district like Paterson, the third largest in the state of New Jersey, you also need to be very organized. And fortunately, I learned that through my parents, and I am highly organized so that you can prioritize your priorities, and be able to get through the day and get everything done. And you also have to be able to delegate and trust your team. And that was also one of my great attributes that I had. I trusted my team, and I had a great team. I had their back and they had my back. And we knew that, and we worked closely together. If they knew that they could come to me, if they hit a roadblock, and I would help them out. And if I needed some advice or I needed to circle back to them and get some input around making a well-informed decision, I trusted that I could go to them and have a conversation with them, and that's what I did. So when you put all of that together, that really was my career. And, I had such a great run. I have no regrets. I think I helped a lot of students and staff members. Would I have liked to help more? Absolutely. But I think the formula for success is, you've got to let your guard down. You've got to be a team player. You have to be flexible. You have to be a good listener. You can't always be doing all the talking. You have to be a good listener, and you have to trust people. Even if that trust gets burnt time after time, you still have to go back and be the bigger person and trust people that they want what you want. And a lot of people say they do, right? Parents say they do, but then it becomes difficult for them to hold up their part of the deal. But that's when you have to go back and you have to give second chances. And that pretty much makes up what my style is about. It's leading from the heart. It's about giving second chances. It's about listening. It's about not demeaning people because they make mistakes, whether you're a principal, an assistant superintendent. It's about not making that same mistake twice. And that's how we learn, and that's how we continue to move education forward.
It's interesting, as I heard you go through your progression, your career path. I believe, let me see, I didn't join Paterson Public Schools officially as an educator until 2000. However, I do believe we had met prior to that because I served on different boards and committees and everything, because I remember you being in the substance abuse position. We called them SACs, so that's what they call. And then I remember when I did officially get hired, I believe you were Director of Human Resources at that time. Whenever I got hired by the district, I believe you were in the Director of Human Resources position at that time. And
yes, that would be
the
early 2000s.
That's right. That's right. Whenever I came on board, you were Director of Human Resources. And it was interesting something you said in terms of each position that you have, each one seems like you liked even better than the other. I remember, I don't know if you remember Dr. Michael Chiricello or not.
Yes.
He was at William Paterson, but in any event, whenever I was doing my master's, he was the dean of the program. And I really, at that point, I had already told him, listen, I'm not leaving the classroom to go be a principal. I said, I love being with the kids. I love being in the classroom. So he said something that kind of resonates with what you said. He says, well, look at it this way. As a classroom teacher, you get to impact 20, 30 kids at a time, but as a principal, you get to impact an entire building. And I'm saying all that to say, if we take that up now to the superintendent's level, you have the opportunity to impact an entire district. What was it like for you? And I have a few questions to ask you. What was it like for you now to know that you were now, because I always, regardless of the superintendent, I always wonder, what does it feel like to know you have 26 to 30,000 children that you're responsible for?
Yeah, it's a huge undertaking. It's massive, and there's always something going on. My phone would start to ring, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, pipe burst. We've got to move kids out of this side of the building or out of the building totally, or there was a bus accident. It was massive. But, I always liked a challenge, and again, it's about being organized and trusting your team. And so every single person in the district reported to someone, and that someone wasn't me. So if the teachers were reporting to the principal was reporting to the assistant superintendent, who was reporting to me. And what made it, Mark, more manageable was that I had a very open door policy. Literally, my door was open because I don't like to have my door closed. And so people knew that if they had a problem or a concern or an issue, they could get right to me. If I was in a meeting, then, I'd cycle back to them in a short period of time once the meeting was over. If it was an emergency, then they would tell my secretary or they would text me, and then I'd have to excuse myself and get to the emergency. But that's really about organization and managing the people that report to you. And in order to make that work, I talked to my team and, we came up with what is going to work for us. Is it going to be, meeting once a week as a cabinet? Is it going to be meeting with just the assistant superintendents to get a clearer picture of what's going on in the schools? Or is it meeting with the facilities department to make sure that I know everything that's going on in buildings, because I don't like surprises, and nobody does. And so it's about communication. Although it's a huge job, if you're organized, if you have good communication and you have a good team, it is very, very doable. And I think, I could equate it to you as a principal of your school. I mean, if you have a good secretary, and that's where everybody goes, and she's communicating to you, then you are always aware of what's going on. If you have a good parent liaison who's communicating to you the other side of the parents and what's going on with them, then it becomes very manageable for you. And so it really comes down to the ability of your team and managing your team, but also talking to your team. What is going to work for us? Do we need more meetings, less meetings? Do we need phone calls, or do you do better with text? And so on. And then you come up with what the system is going to be, and that's what you do. And I had just one request that I wasn't going to back down on, and that was you respond to whoever calls you, emails you within 24 hours. People should not have to wait more than 24 hours for a call back or text back or an email. And that was just the one thing that I wasn't going to back down on. Everything else was negotiable with my team. And so we put together a plan that we thought would work. We'd have to go back once in a while and tweak it and come up with something else that we would need to do. When COVID hit, everything changed, and so our way of communicating was then different because folks were all remote. And so you had to be flexible to do that. But again, it's about trust and organization that and setting your priorities. But it's really about trusting the people around you that they're going to carry out the vision and the mission of the district.
And listening audience, I hope you've been with me since 6, but I definitely hope you've been with me since 7, because my guest this morning is Eileen F. Shafer. She's the immediate pass school superintendent of Paterson Public Schools, and we are talking about her book, Rising Through the Ranks. Actually, we haven't even gotten to the book yet, even though she is touching on things that are in the book, because there are a few different history-making events that occurred with Ms. Shafer, and everything that she's saying is true. As a matter of fact, I know it's true because I served under her administration. And secondly, like she's saying, leading from the heart, she really did, in terms of I knew her, and I would, from a respect standpoint of her position and my position, call her Miss Shafer. But at the same time, anytime I call her Eileen, she called me Marc. And she's right about that open door policy in terms of being reachable and in touch with her, so forth and so on. There's a couple of conversations, because you just brought up COVID, that I remember having with her, because I pulled it when COVID was going on, which I honestly thought COVID to a certain degree, it occurred during her administration, and she handled it, in my view, wonderfully. Because it's almost like you got a raw deal. I get into the position, now we get hit with this. And I remember telling her, I said, you know what, with COVID, I wouldn't have wanted to have been the president. I wouldn't have wanted to have been the governor. I wouldn't have wanted to have been the superintendent. And I barely wanted to be the principal. Because that was some trying times. COVID was something else. And as she just said, we pivoted. We had to get Chromebooks into the hands of every child. And you took it a step further. You were still, throughout COVID, feeding families. This is back to that heart thing again. She was still feeding families through COVID, making a way because for a lot of our families, for a lot of our children, their 1 or 2 meals of the day may only be coming from school. Or if they are getting something at home, certainly the meals coming from school supplement. So Ms. Shafer was determined that we were not going to stop serving food. Talk a little bit about, what was going on there when COVID and everything hit.
Yes. And, Marc, you bring up a good point. Whenever I would go around the schools, I would always make it a point to go through the cafeteria, because there you saw most of the kids. And I wanted the kids to know who the superintendent was. I can remember going to school. I didn't know the superintendent, but it was important to me that kids knew who I was. And if I would stop and talk to a student, they would say, "Oh, you're the one that's always calling my house on our voicemail," because we would do those robocalls. And but I wanted them to put a face to that message that they kept receiving all the time, whether it was a snow day or a special announcement. But something that I knew my entire career in urban education was that exactly what you said. Some of the children's meals only came from the school. And I can remember seeing some kids eating like they hadn't eaten in a week, and then going up to the cafeteria folks and asking, do you have an extra apple?
Right.
Do you have an extra this or that?
That's right.
And when COVID came, it was in my face. Well, you got to do something, because you know in your heart that these kids are only eating the 2 meals they get at school. And you got to do something about this. And so, again, lots of meetings. Our food service people were on board. The state finally put something out that you could give out meals. And so we put a plan together. We worked with the mayor, worked with the city, and we set up, at the time, at a lot of firehouses. And we set up meals. We had our social distancing. We had our masks on. And, I had parents coming to those sites in tears because they were so thankful that we were providing the meals. And I can remember mothers coming up and, they had 5 kids, 6 kids. And I said to my staff, listen, I don't care how many kids they say they have. You give them what they ask for, because somebody needed to eat. And
Correct.
Maybe it was the mother.
Correct.
And if the mother wasn't eating, how was she going to take care of the kids? So, we didn't do the, let's check off Marc Medley, 3 kids, look it up, are you sure? We weren't going through that. I just said, if they come up and say it, then you give them what they ask for. And the parents were coming twice a week, and they could get meals. These were shelf-ready meals. So you could get meals that would last you 3 days, and then you would come back for the other 2 days of the week. Well, as time went on, and we were still not back in school, and there was no no timeline in sight with COVID, we began to give the kids meals for the weekends. Because, what was happening on the weekends if we were not providing the meals? And so we served over 3 million meals. My team came out and volunteered twice a week to give out the meals, even though people were getting very sick all around them. They were still coming out as much as they possibly could. And again, I wanted to keep them safe. We had gloves on. We had masks on. Everything was outdoors. So, there was some cold days. If you remember, COVID started in March.
That's correct.
March and April can be shaky. And so, but we were there. And I was going around to those 12 sites when we were giving out meals to make sure everybody was good, and to thank my staff for coming out, because that was a heavy lift for them. Nobody wanted to come out. There was a period of time during COVID. I can remember, I would go into the office every day and come home and, strip down, put everything in the wash, don't bring anything in the house that was out at the office. Because we didn't know enough about COVID. They didn't want you bringing boxes or packages
Correct.
In the house. They thought it was being transmitted through paper. There was so many different things that were going on at the time that you really had to be very, very careful. And probably the best thing anyone could do was stay home in their house and no one leave. And this way you were not bringing something back to the home. So everyone, in my opinion, who helped us throughout COVID, whether it was giving out Chromebooks, and you made a good point, Mark, our students did not have their own personal Chromebooks. We had some computers in schools. We had just started to give the high school kids, we did 1 grade, computers, and we had a phase-in plan because it's very expensive, and we didn't have the money. Well, COVID, there was a silver lining to COVID because money came through from the government, and we were then able to get a Chromebook in every child's hand by Labor Day. But from March until Labor Day, we were using paper packets.
That's correct.
For 28,000 children and 28,000 packets every 2 weeks. And I can remember my deputy trying to find her in the cafeteria under all the packets because she was trying to arrange them so that kids could get credit for bringing the packets in. And she had a whole team working there trying to separate everything. And but once we were able to get the Chromebooks in everyone's hand, then we were pretty much on a level playing field with everyone else. And now we had to put the kids through how to operate the Chromebook and teach the teachers how to do remote instruction. And then we were well on our way. And but it was a tough go. If you remember, during that period of time, China had gotten in trouble for child labor. Well, our computers that we ordered were stuck now in China.
Correct.
And so that prolonged it. And I can remember getting a call Labor Day weekend from my technology director, who said they have all arrived. I have a team. We're working all weekend to get them set up, and they'll be ready for distribution the day after Labor Day. And we got teams to come out and help us distribute laptops and Chromebooks to every student in the district. So it was a heavy lift.
It really was. I mean, because reflectively, when you look at it, it was a time. That's what I said. I thought you did a yeoman's job leading us through that. I remember my post was at the firehouse on Temple Street. I was there handing out meals. Mm-hmm. And you're right in what you were saying in terms of the people coming to get the meals and feeding on the weekends. I don't know how many other districts, if any, were doing that, but I do know we were providing food. And you were talking about those paper packets. Listening audience, you need to understand when those packets were being returned, we actually put them through a process to be disinfected. You had a vendor that we had to send all these packets to because people were like, well, okay, well, we don't know if it's on paper or not, so we're not touching the paper that went home and coming back. So we even went through that process. But we also, through that, we suffered some losses. And there was one in particular that I felt that you really felt and took hard, and that was Dr. Glisson.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Dr. Gerald Glisson was the athletic director at Eastside High School. Then he was the vice principal. Then he was the principal. And but he was a dear friend. He was the kind of guy, he called me the first lady. And he would call me just to say, I'm like, what's wrong? And he'd be like, no, I'm just calling to check on you. I want to make sure you're doing all right. And that would be, he would just call to say that.
Right.
And then he would hang up. And he was just I called him a gentle giant because he was probably about 6'8", 6'9". He was a football player. He was a very, very big man with a huge heart.
Correct.
And he would give you the shirt off his back, just a nice man. And he was so nice that he was helping his elderly neighbor and went and got her groceries and brought them into the house, and didn't realize she had COVID, and he got COVID from her, and he ended up in the hospital, and him and I were texting every day and just checking on him. And after a couple days, the texts stopped, and I said, oh boy, what's going on? And if you remember during COVID, your family, no one could go see you.
Correct.
You were in the hospital. And then I got a call. It was about 11:30 at night on a Sunday night that he had passed away. And got out of bed and got in my car and went to his wife's house. And there was so many people there, just the outpouring of love because of who he was.
That is correct.
And just went there for a while. And even the funeral and the burial arrangements, everything was so different
Correct.
because of COVID.
Correct.
You know, we went to the funeral home, and you know, it was like the family wasn't there. It was like two people at a time.
Right.
And you were in and you were out. There wasn't any staying or talking to anybody. You were in and you were out. And it was just a very, very sad situation because he had a wonderful career ahead of him.
Correct.
He was on the fast track. He just got his doctorate degree. And he was, you know, like I said, he was a teacher coordinator first. Then he moved on to be the athletic director and the vice principal and then the principal. So he was on the move.
No, he
and
really
he had
was.
a personality.
And like I said, his loss, I really felt for you. I really, because I kind of sensed that relationship, and I knew Gerald as well. And but that one, I said, wow, Eileen, I know that one, she felt that one for sure. Not that you didn't feel the other one, but that one in particular. But like I said, I just thought you led us through COVID, like I said, in a spectacular manner, given that none of us knew what on the world was going on and what we were doing. But that wasn't your only historic feat in terms of that. You were the first woman superintendent in Paterson's history. What was that like?
Yeah, that was very exciting because we were now leading the third largest district in the state of New Jersey with an all-female leadership team. The president of the board was female, the vice president was a female, the deputy was female, and myself. And that was very exciting. Nothing against the men or nothing against, but this was just different. This was very different to have in an urban district an all-female leadership team. And it was very exciting. I have to tell you, when the board voted me in, it was very overwhelming. The place was packed, and I mean, there was just people from all different places. And keep in mind that, you know, we were run by the state for 30-plus years.
Correct.
My appointment was that the state said, we are going to let the state-operated school districts pick their own superintendents. The state is no longer assigning superintendents to these school districts. And so I was the first after state control, or even during state control, because we didn't get local control yet. I was the first superintendent to be selected by the community and by the board during state control. And then since then, you know, the board votes and chooses the superintendent. But it was a very, very exciting time. I have to say I was humbled. I was very, very overwhelmed of what that was like. Because I really didn't know. I knew the work and the job, what it entailed, but it's more about the emotional piece that I didn't know. And so I, kind of went through that. And like I said, it was a very humbling experience, and very gratifying, very gratifying.
Well, I'm talking personally. I thought it was a natural transition because, I saw the relationship between you and Dr. Evans, and Dr. Evans would lean on you heavily. I remember being in meetings, a lot of times we would ask a question and he'd look to you and say, Eileen. And so if anybody knew the inner workings of Paterson Public Schools, it was you. So that, to me, was a natural transition. Now, there was a third, and you just kind of touched on it a little bit. There's a third historic event that you were a part of as well, and that was Paterson Public Schools going back to local control. How big was that?
That was huge. When I became superintendent, Governor Murphy was trying to figure out what is going to be the plan to get these school districts out of state control. They've been in state control for over 30 years. There was three of them, three big ones, Jersey City, Newark, and Paterson. And everybody knew how to get in state control, but no one had a plan to get out. And so Governor Murphy was determined to put together plans to get school districts out of state control. And so he put together a 2-year transition plan that we had to monitor. There were certain benchmarks that we had to meet. And this was all hands on deck. This was principals, vice principals, supervisors, directors, assistant superintendents. Everybody played a role in order to get the district out of state control. And I'm sure you can remember, Mark, we prepared for QSAC.
I do.
And for facilities, the state coming in and checking the facility, and we had a checklist for that. Everybody had a role to play in order for us to meet these metrics. This was a team effort. And so, I got my folks together, and I remember again what I said earlier, everyone reported to someone. And so we met constantly, like every 2 weeks. And my saying was always, where are we? Where are we? Where are we? And everybody would report out where they are with the certain metrics that they were dealing with. Because we couldn't give people, all right, you're in charge of all the metrics. You had to divvy this up so that it was fair, because people had their regular job they were doing, and now in addition to it, they had to make sure that we were meeting metrics. So everyone had something that they were in charge of. And so we would come together and we would report out, and if I saw that there was maybe a weak link or somebody wasn't getting from folks what they needed, I would intervene. And other people would intervene to help. So we were helping each other fulfill that metrics. And in January 6th of 21, we received local control. And that was another celebration, big celebration.
That's right. Congrats. Because like you said, it had been over 30 years. Again, listening audience, my guest this morning is Eileen F. Shafer. She's the author of the book Rising Through the Ranks, a memoir of perseverance and grit. And we're talking about that as we talked about different aspects and points in her career, as well as, different experiences. I remember, I told you, there's a couple of conversations that stand out in my mind. I remember the one about COVID, and I remember when you called me into my office for my current assignment that I'm in now. She calls me into her office, and she says, I need you to do me a favor. And I look at her and I said, what might that be? And she says, I want you to lead the boys' school. I want you to lead the leadership school. So I look at her and I smile. I say, what if I say no? And she just looks at me and I said, I'm teasing. I've been in that particular assignment. This is my 7th year there. And it has been a wonderful assignment leading our young men in the Leadership Academy. So I often reflect on that, and when I tell people, I said, Eileen called me in office. She said, I need you to do me a favor. And I said, what? She said, I want you to lead the boys' school. I said, what if I say no? I said, she just looks at me. She looks at me as well. I said, I'm teasing. But in any event, so we go through all that, and now it comes time for retirement, because now I'm working my way to the writing of the book. You now retired, and where did the whole notion of writing a book come from?
So I mentioned earlier that the editor and ghostwriter of my book, Ruth Baskerville, Dr. Ruth Baskerville, was my first boss as a teacher in Orange in 1981. I left Orange and went to Paterson in 92. Well, in 96, who do I see in Paterson but Dr. Ruth Baskerville? And she was the director of curriculum and instruction. And then shortly after that, she became the principal in Norman S. Weir School. And so her and I reconnected again. And, we would go back and forth with each other from time to time, even after Ruth retired. And I continued in Paterson. We'd keep in touch, a couple times a year. She moved to Atlanta, then she moved to Florida. And during my time as superintendent, we were probably talking more often, and I invited her to my retirement dinner, and I asked her to speak because she knew me throughout my career. And prior to her coming to my retirement dinner, she said to me, no, you got to write a book. I said, yeah, what am I going to write about? And she said, you're going to write about all the things you have done. And she said, I'm going to help you because I'm a ghostwriter and an editor. And I've written 84 books. And so you're going to write a book. And I kept thinking about it, and, it was in the back of my mind, but I wasn't convinced yet. And after my retirement dinner, throughout that first summer, she was on me. You got to write a book. You got to write the book. And finally, in September of 23, I said, okay, I'm going to write a book with you. And that's how it all happened. And she said, well, you can start, typing up whatever you want, send it to me, and I'll develop it into a manuscript. And I said, oh, wait a minute, Ruth, that's not me. I'm not going to be sitting typing. I said, I'm more hands-on. I'm more, communicative with people. I said, what if I interview people and then send you the tapes, and you transcribe the tapes and put it into the manuscript? So she said, well, that'll work too. So that's what we did. I interviewed about 50 people, and that's a lot of the stories in the book are from those people, as well as my own stories. And she developed it into a manuscript. We went back and forth for 2 years and this was constant, of putting it together. And we wanted to make sure that we captured all the important things during my career, like some of the things you just mentioned, Mark, like COVID, like getting back local control. And so I interviewed parents and some of my team and principals and retired folks, some of the politicians, the union people. I interviewed all of those people to see what they had to say and what they thought of my tenure in Paterson Public Schools. And it's 13 chapters, and it's 234 pages. And her and I put that together over a 2-year period, and almost to the day of 2 years, we had the completed book went to be published. And we then had our 2 book launches, October 3rd and 5th. And it was very exciting. You were there, Mark, so you saw the turnout. It was correct. Like a reunion. There was a lot of folks that worked with me that retired, so they came back. And then there was a lot of current people that I worked with. And then there's a lot of new folks that heard about me, heard about the book launch, and they came out. So I was really taken back at the book launch in Paterson because there was so many people that came out, so much love in the room and support. And that's really what my career was. It was love and support of the people I served. And that's so rewarding for me, and it just meant the world to me to see all of those people come out, and so many people talking, about some of the things that we did together, and with smiles on their faces. At the time it was hard work, trying to get through COVID, trying to get everybody a Chromebook, trying to get local control. It was hard work. People were working hard around the clock. But as they talked about it that night, they had smiles on their faces because we did it. We were able to get through whatever was thrown at us. And, there were some people that weren't in the room, like we talked about. Dr. Gleason was one. And we did a moment of silence because those people were important to me. And I can remember during COVID, I would get a list every day of the staff that had COVID because we had to report that to the state.
Correct.
And I made it my business to call every one of them every day. So if you were on the list, you got a call from me, and just checking in to see how you're doing. Is there anything you need from us? And really that's what it was all about. And, many of our students got sick. I remember a seventh grade boy. He lost both parents to COVID. I mean, really some heart-wrenching situations that our staff and their families went through. Staff members lost both parents. One of my team members lost both of her parents. Just a really, really difficult time for the world, for the country. And but we were able to get through it and get everybody back into classrooms safely, and move on. And our next next feat was trying to get back local control in the midst of all of this, and we were able to do that too. So the book launch really went well. It was great to see so many folks that work in Paterson and who I think may have learned a little bit from me that, you know, you've got to give kids second and third chances. You've got to work with people, and you got to have a heart. You got to have a heart. You can't, always be by the rules. You've got to be able to be flexible because everybody's different. Everybody's different. And, during COVID, we had kids didn't have Wi-Fi in the house. We had to figure that out.
That's right, with the hotspots. That's right.
Yeah. There was so many things that, people in other districts just assume, all right, we need to get everybody their Chromebook out of their locker if they didn't take it home. No, we were at ground zero, and we needed to first get Wi-Fi. Then we needed to get the money to get the Chromebooks. And then we needed to get the meals. I mean, we were down to the basics. And
you're right. You're absolutely right.
A lot of places, were so far ahead of us. But we were at the basics. And when you have a good team and when you have people, I mean, Mark, you were out there. There was a lot of principals that were out there. But when you have a good team like that really care about the people they serve, and again, caring about the people they serve comes from your heart. People were out there doing whatever they could do to help. And eventually people would be calling us, what can I do to help? What do you need? What can I do? And that was important, that everybody became part of trying to solve this problem of COVID or of getting local control and getting us through so we could come out on the other end better than we were when I started as superintendent.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I was at the book signing, and what happened was the room that they had booked, they did not expect the number of people because they would have booked a bigger room had they thought that number of people were coming. It was standing room only. We were out into the reception area. Folks were lined up out there because the room was full. It was a very nice turnout, very nice time, celebratory, and well-deserved. So, Ms. Shafer, Eileen, we have come down to the point now where what I do is I turn off the microphone and you have the opportunity to promote. You can promote the book, they can get in touch with you, any websites or shout-outs or anything you want to do. The only thing you cannot do is a dollar amount. That's the only restriction, is that you cannot say a dollar amount. Folks can work that out with you once they get in touch with you or however they decide to purchase. But anything short of a dollar amount, I'm going to turn the mic off and you have the opportunity to promote and we will be done.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Uh-huh.
Well, it was great being on here with you, Mark, and to the audience who's listening, thank you so much for being here as well. My book is Rising Through the Ranks, a memoir of perseverance and grit by Eileen F. Shafer. This book is available through email to me. My email address is ES like in Sam, ORT like in Tom, LEY @gmail.com. If you email me, I will make sure that you get a copy of my book. If you're an aspiring administrator, if you're a parent, if you're a student, if you're an educator, if you're a community member, this book is for you because in the book it talks about all of those people being part of the education of our children. And in the world we're in right now, especially in our country, where things are difficult, and we want to always keep education as a priority, this book is for you, because it will give you information that you can go back to your school district where your kids go to school or your grandchildren go to school, and ask the right questions. And you'll glean a lot of information from this book that will help you as a parent, that will help you as an educator, will help you as an administrator or an aspiring administrator, and as a community member. So again, that email is esortley@gmail.com. Email me, and I'll be sure that you get a book.
Well, thank you for rising early to join me. Had a wonderful conversation with you. I do record them. They will be on my YouTube channel. I will email you a copy of the links, and once you get them, feel free to do whatever you'd like with them. Share them however you'd like to. But yeah, it will be on my YouTube channel for those who did not rise early. They can go back at their convenience and take a listen to it. So I tell you what, I wish you well. You in the shore house, having the opportunity to listen to the ocean and listen to the waves. But thank you so much for everything that you've done with the city of Paterson, with our children and everybody else. As you say, with your teams. Thank you for everything. Or as they say with the military, thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you for having me as a guest today. And thank you for what you do. I do remember clearly now, Mark said, what happens if I say no? But you know what, Mark? You were made for that spot. You're doing a great job as a male role model for those young men that are in your school. And they couldn't have asked for a better person to be running that school. So I wish you the best and continued success as you move on.
Well, thank you again. Thank you so much. And no, I wasn't going to say no, but I was teasing you. I was like, yes. Well, you have a wonderfully blessed day, a wonderfully positive day. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep leading from the heart. Because I'm with you on that. I am with you 1,000,000% on that leading from the heart piece, because I pretty much do the same thing.
Yes, you do.
We do have to be flexible. Yes, we can live by the book or live by we can live by the law or live by the spirit. And, to me, the heart and the spirit to me is always better. So I agree with you there. All right. So again, be well, and I will be in touch with you.
All right, Mark. Thank you for everything.
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right.